This happened to me when I was 22. I was living alone in my first apartment, working a job I did not love, spending too much time online in the evenings, the way you do when you are young and a little lonely and the internet is always there. I had been using a dating app for a few months. Nothing serious. I was not looking for anything in particular, just the low-stakes browsing that the apps were designed to encourage. A way to pass the evening that felt vaguely productive. I matched with a guy named Tyler on a Thursday night. His profile looked normal. A few photos, outdoors in most of them, hiking, a beach somewhere, the kind of photos that looked like a real person's life rather than a carefully curated performance. His bio was short and straightforward, 20s, worked in construction, liked being outside, looking for something real. We started talking. The conversation was good from the beginning, easy. He was funny without trying too hard. He asked questions and seemed interested in the answers. We talked about music and about the city and about the particular frustration of apps like the one we were on and whether either of us actually knew what we were looking for. We talked every evening for a week. Then he asked if I wanted to meet for coffee. I said yes. We agreed on a coffee shop near my apartment for the following Saturday afternoon. Friday night I was getting ready to go to bed when I got a message from him. He said he was looking forward to tomorrow. He said he had driven past the coffee shop that afternoon to check it out. This was a little unusual, but not immediately alarming. People scoped out locations before dates. I did it myself occasionally. Then he said something that made me sit up. He said he had noticed the bookstore next door and thought we could go in after coffee if I wanted. He said he knew I liked bookstores. I looked at the message for a moment. I had not told him I liked bookstores. I scrolled back through our entire conversation. Not once had bookstores come up. I had not mentioned them on my profile either. I typed back and asked how he knew that. He said I had mentioned it. I told him I had checked and I had not mentioned it. He said he must have assumed from something I had said. I let it go, but I lay awake for a while thinking about it. Saturday morning I got another message from him. He said he was excited to meet me. He said he hoped the coffee shop had the dark roast I liked. I stared at my phone. I had never told him how I took my coffee or what kind I preferred. Not once in the entire week of conversation. I typed back slowly and asked him where he had gotten that from. He said I had mentioned it the first night we talked. I went back through the conversation again, beginning to end. There was no mention of coffee preferences anywhere. I sat with my phone in my hands and thought about what was happening. There were two possibilities. The first was that he was confusing me with someone else, that he was talking to multiple people on the app and had mixed up details between conversations. This was possible, but it did not feel right. The details were too specific. The bookstores, the dark roast. These were not generic details that might apply to anyone. These were specific things about me, things I had not told him. I thought about the other possibility, that he knew these things from somewhere else, that the profile and the week of easy conversation had not been the beginning of his knowledge of me, that it had been the performance of not knowing things he already knew. I typed one more message. I asked him what my apartment building looked like. I sent it before I could talk myself out of it. I watched the screen. 3 dots appeared. He was typing, then the dots disappeared. A long pause, then the dots again, then they disappeared again. He never answered the question. Instead, he sent a message that said something had come up and he needed to reschedule. I blocked him immediately. I called my friend and told her what had happened while I walked through my apartment checking that the windows were locked. She asked if I was okay. I said I thought so, but I did not go to the coffee shop that Saturday. and for the following 2 weeks I took different routes to and from work every day, and I thought about a man who had known things about me that I had never told him, and I wondered how long he had known them, and whether the app had been where it started, or simply where he had decided to introduce himself. I grew up with brothers. I have lived alone since I was 20. I have never been the kind of person who checked under the bed or triple locked the door or needed the television on to fall asleep. I am telling you this because what happened to me 2 years ago still frightens me. And I want you to understand that it takes something real to do that. I had been talking to a guy online for about 3 weeks. We had met through a Facebook group for people who liked hiking. He had commented on a trail photo I had posted and sent me a friend request, and we had started talking in the way that felt natural because we had an obvious shared interest and a mutual online community connecting us. His name was Derek. He had a full profile, years of posts, friends in common with people I actually knew, photos going back to college, the kind of digital history that you could not fake easily. He looked real because he was real. We talked every day about hiking mostly, about trails we had done and trails we wanted to do, about gear and weather and the particular kind of peace that being in the mountains produced. He lived in a city about 2 hours from mine. After 3 weeks, he suggested we meet for a hike on a trail we had both mentioned wanting to do. I agreed. We planned it for a Saturday in late October, a trail about an hour from my city. We said we would meet at the trailhead parking lot at 9 in the morning. I drove up on Saturday morning. I got there a few minutes early. There were a handful of other cars in the lot, but no one who matched Derek's photos waiting around. I texted him to say I had arrived. He texted back immediately saying he was 5 minutes away. I sat in my car and waited. 5 minutes passed. I texted again. He said he was pulling in now. I looked at the parking lot entrance, no car coming in. I texted again. He said he was at the trailhead. Was I at the main lot or the overflow? I said the main lot. He said he was at the main lot. I looked around the parking lot. No one was standing around waiting. A couple was loading packs from their car. An older man was tying his bootlaces on a bench. Nobody was looking around for someone. I got out of my car. I texted and said I was standing in the middle of the lot in a red jacket. He texted back. He said he could see me. I turned around slowly, looking at every person visible in the parking lot. Nobody was looking at me. I texted back. I said I could not see him. What was he wearing? He said a grey jacket. I looked at every person in the lot again. No grey jacket. Then my phone rang. His name on the screen. I answered. He said, "Hey, I can see you. You're standing near the information board." I was not near the information board. I was in the center of the lot, 30 feet from it. I said I was not near the information board. A pause. He said, "Yes, you are." I said, "No, I am not. I am in the center of the lot." Another pause. He said, "What color is your jacket?" I said, "Red." A long pause. Long enough that I started walking toward my car. Then he said something that I still think about. He said that was not right. He said the woman he was looking at was not wearing red. The woman he was looking at, not you, the woman. I was at my car door. I said I was leaving. He said wait, he was confused. He must be in the wrong lot. I got in my car. I locked the doors. I said I did not think we should meet. He said I was overreacting. I drove out of the parking lot. I drove for about 10 minutes before I pulled over because my hands were shaking enough that I did not trust myself on the road. I sat in the car and thought about what had just happened. He had been watching someone in that parking lot, someone he had believed was me, someone who was not me, which meant he had been looking for me physically, looking at women in a parking lot trying to identify me, not waiting for me to approach him, not standing somewhere visible with his own jacket where I could find him, scanning, looking, trying to pick me out from a group of strangers before I knew he was there. I went home and blocked him on everything. I called the friend who knew we had been talking and told her the whole story. She did not say I was overreacting. I reported the interaction to the Facebook group admin. They removed his account within an hour. They told me 2 other women had reported similar experiences with the same profile. Similar meaning they had agreed to meet him somewhere and arrived to find nobody waiting for them, but with the persistent feeling that someone was there, watching, looking, trying to find them before they found him. My aunt told me this story and gave me permission to share it. She was 53 when it happened, and I want to be clear about that because she was not young or naive or inexperienced in the way that people sometimes assume when they hear these stories. She was a practical woman, a retired nurse. She had been widowed for 4 years and had been persuaded by her daughter to try an online dating site as a way of meeting people. She was skeptical from the start. She told me this. She went into it with her eyes open and her expectations low and a reasonable level of caution that came from 5 decades of reading people professionally. She matched with a man named Robert in the spring. His profile said he was 58, a widower. He had a grown son. He had retired early from a career in civil engineering and was now doing some consulting work from home. No military background mentioned on the profile. They started messaging. The conversation was slow and careful in the way of 2 older people who were not in a hurry. He was well written, thoughtful. He asked about her nursing career with what seemed like genuine curiosity. He talked about his own work in terms that sounded knowledgeable without being showy. After 2 weeks, he mentioned that he had been called back for a short contract. He said he did occasional consulting work for an infrastructure project overseas. He said he might be less reachable for a few weeks. My aunt accepted this. She had no reason not to. He disappeared for 10 days. Then he came back and apologized and said the project had extended and communications had been difficult. She noticed that his written style had changed slightly, not dramatically, but the particular rhythms of his sentences were different. The vocabulary was similar, but the assembly of it was subtly off. She mentioned this to him. He said he was tired from the work, that it affected how he wrote. She accepted this. He asked if she would be willing to send him a gift card. He said there was something he needed to purchase for the project and the payment systems available to him were limited. She said no. He accepted this without pushback and the conversation continued. My aunt is a smart woman. She knew what this was. She had read about it. She had seen warnings shared in the forums attached to the dating site. Military romance scams, fake soldiers, fake overseas deployments, the slow build of trust followed by requests for money. She knew exactly what was happening, but she kept talking to him, not because she was fooled, because she was curious. She told me she wanted to understand how it worked from the inside. So she played along. She expressed sympathy about the deployment. She asked questions that she already knew the answers to and watched how he navigated them. She watched him construct and maintain a fictional life with the particular skill of someone who had done it many times. She kept notes. After another month, he asked for money again, this time a more significant amount. She said she might be able to help if she could speak to him directly. She asked for a video call. he agreed. The man on the video call was not the man in the profile photographs. He was younger, different features, clearly not the same person. He claimed the lighting and connection quality were affecting the image. She said she understood and ended the call. She filed a report with the dating site and with the relevant fraud reporting bodies and included all the notes she had been keeping for the previous 2 months. Then she did one more thing. She had become curious about the photographs used in the profile. She ran them through a reverse image search. The photographs belonged to a real man, a retired civil engineer who had passed away 3 years earlier, whose photographs had been taken from an old social media account that his family had not deactivated after his death. My aunt found the family. She contacted them to let them know their father's photographs were being used. The family was grateful and devastated in equal measure. They had not known. They deactivated the account immediately. My aunt told me she thought about the real man afterward, a retired engineer who had worked his whole life, who had a son, who had died and left a digital footprint that someone had found and decided to wear like a costume. She said it was the part of the story that sat with her most heavily, not the fraud itself, not even the skill with which it had been constructed, but the idea of a real person's face and name and life being used by someone else without their knowledge, the particular violation of that, and the fact that it was happening everywhere, constantly, to people who had no idea their image was out there being used to build trust with strangers, being used to lower someone's guard, being used to make someone believe that the person they were talking to was real and human and lonely in the same way they were lonely, when in reality the person behind the screen was none of those things. And the only real part of the whole construction was borrowed from a dead man who never agreed to any of it and never knew. I want to tell you about something that happened to my friend. I'm going to call her Sarah because she asked me not to use her real name. Sarah is one of the most grounded people I know. She is not dramatic. She is not someone who exaggerates for effect or reads danger into situations that do not warrant it. She is the calm one, the practical one, which is why when she called me at 11 on a Wednesday night and I could hear something in her voice I had never heard there before, I paid attention. She had been talking to a guy for about a month. She met him on an app. His name was Marcus. He was 31. He worked in marketing. He had a dog named Pepper who appeared in several of his photos in the particular way that men who understood dating apps knew a dog improved a profile. They had talked every day for 4 weeks, not just texting, real conversation, long phone calls in the evenings, the kind of back and forth that made an hour disappear without either of them noticing. Sarah liked him genuinely. She was not prone to catching feelings quickly, and she told me she was surprised by how easy it had been with him. He was consistent. He was warm. He texted when he said he would and called when he said he would, and nothing about his behavior had produced any of the flags she had learned to look for. They agreed to meet for dinner on a Saturday night. He chose the restaurant, a nice place downtown. He made the reservation and sent her the confirmation without her asking. Saturday came. She left her apartment at 7. She was 10 minutes out when her phone buzzed on the passenger seat. A text from Marcus. He said he was already at the restaurant and had been seated. He said he had ordered them both a drink. He said he had gotten her the gin and tonic she mentioned liking. She put the phone down and kept driving, smiling to herself. She pulled into the parking garage attached to the restaurant building and found a space on the second level. She picked up her phone to text him that she was parking. She had a new message. It said he hoped she had found parking okay. He said the garage on the east side of the building had a tricky entrance. She looked at the message. She looked at the entrance to the garage she had just driven through. It was on the east side of the building. She had not told him which garage she was using. She told herself there were probably only 1 or 2 garages near the restaurant. She told herself it was a reasonable guess. She typed back that she had found parking fine and was on her way in. She got out of the car. She was walking toward the elevator when her phone buzzed again. He said she looked great, by the way. She stopped walking. She looked around the garage, concrete pillars, fluorescent lighting, a handful of cars, empty as far as she could see. She typed back that she was still in the parking garage. 3 dots appeared immediately, then stopped. A long pause. Then he typed that he meant she would look great, that he was sure of it, that he had just meant it as an expression. Sarah stood very still. She thought about the East Side garage comment. She thought about the dress comment. She thought about a month of phone calls in which she had talked openly about her life, her routines, her neighborhood. She typed one message. She asked him which table he was sitting at. The dots appeared, then stopped, then appeared again. Then he said he was at a table near the window at the front. Sarah walked to the elevator and rode down to the ground floor. She stood on the pavement and looked at the front of the restaurant through the large window. She looked at every face visible through the glass. She did not see him. She called him. He answered immediately. He said, "Hey, are you close?" She said she was outside, looking through the window and could not see him. He said he might have moved. He said it had gotten busy. She said okay. She said she would come in. She did not go in. She opened his profile on the app and pressed and held one of his photos and ran it through a reverse image search. The results loaded. The photograph appeared on a LinkedIn page for a man with a completely different name who worked in insurance in a city 400 miles away. Sarah stood outside the restaurant on a Saturday night in the dress she had spent 40 minutes choosing and looked at a photograph of a stranger whose face had been used to make her believe in someone who did not exist. She called me from the pavement. That was when I heard the thing in her voice I had never heard before. Not fear exactly, the specific feeling of realizing that the ground you thought you were standing on had not been there at all. I stayed on the phone while she walked back to her car. I stayed on the phone while she drove home. I stayed on the phone until she was inside with the door locked. She never found out who it was. She deleted every dating app that night. She told me afterward that the thing she could not stop thinking about was not the fake profile or the stolen photographs or even the comment about the dress. It was the month of phone calls, the ease of them, the way she had felt genuinely known by someone who turned out to be no one. And the question she kept returning to in the weeks that followed. Not who he was, but how many times he had done it before. And how many women were out there somewhere asking the same question, still waiting for an answer that was never going to come.